Dear members and friends of CCME, greetings from Brussels and all the best wishes for the new year for 2023. Will it be a blessed and fruitful and happy one for you? I'm coming back to you with some news about recent developments and discussions in Brussels and the EU around the issue of return. You may have heard about it. There was a Justice and Home Affairs Ministers meeting last week which discussed it. The European Commission presented a policy paper, and the extraordinary summit next week is likely to discuss it. Just to start and to repeat, CCME as an organization accepts that if people who have asked to stay in the EU, in Europe, and have after due process and fair process received a negative decision, these people have to return. That's the starting point. However, looking at some of the discussions, we're really wondering how helpful it is. It starts with the debate and the statistics around it. You will have heard only 20% of those who should return are returning, or 29%. I'm not sure where officials get these statistics from, because statistics on national level are extremely poor and they're also misleading. We do have quite a lot of people who have received a return decision, and practice shows that they have returned or they have left the country, but they didn't notify anybody. For example, to avoid that they get a stamp in their passport, which allows them not to enter for 5 years. Other people have by now required another authorization to stay and have been granted this authorization. So we have maybe people in the statistics who are no longer really obliged to return. And among those who are obliged, there's lots of people who can't return. In some countries, they would be exposed to torture or even death. They can't return. In some countries, there's no viable means of transport of getting there, and a lot of countries don't issue papers for those who want to be returning to re-enter. So there's a whole lot of problems behind these statistics. And then let's look at the policy measures which are being proposed. There's this policy document towards an operational strategy for more effective returns. Well, the problem with this one is, of course, that it only gives you some of the old ideas. The old ideas such as let's reinforce the return directive. The recast has been proposed in 2016. At that time, the European Commission proposed it without making any impact assessment. The European Parliament then carried out an impact assessment, and they said, you're not going to achieve anything. It's purely punitive what you're trying to do, but it will not in any way help returns. So what is this? The second proposal is to say, let's be tough on countries of origin with the visas. We don't grant them visas. Now, if you have people who are coming or staying irregularly, not allowing people from the same country to obtain a visa, in my view, doesn't reduce the number of people who should return, but rather increases it. So I'm not totally sure what they're trying to achieve with that. And then there's another suggestion which says, let's have standard return packages. Well, that's also probably not a very good idea. Return is a very individual affair, and people need to be given individual opportunities to return and to integrate in those countries which they have left. And also here, one size fits all doesn't really help. And then there's a proposal in this policy document towards an operational strategy for more effective returns, which reads, and let me really read it out to you. Under flagship work streams, the European Commission suggests to develop analysis and a situational awareness on the functioning of return. And now I'm a bit puzzled about that. I would normally think that you would do that before you come up with a policy. So what could be done instead? One of the things is to look at why people become undocumented, and very often it's administrative hassle and burden and people not understanding procedures. So being able to fulfill the procedure for being regular is very, very important. The second thing is to say legal pathways. If people have legal pathways, the attraction of irregular pathways or overstaying is far less. And then tailor-made return options are very, very important. People who are returning but don't find anything except a heap of rubble and no perspective are very, very likely to come back to the country which has asked them to return. So these are 3 proposals to overcome the blockage in return and do it in a realistic way. What we have seen, however, is unfortunately not very realistic and is in itself a self-fulfilling prophecy for failure and likely to contribute to a debate which scandalizes and makes a crisis out of migratory movements in general. This cannot be in the interest of anybody who wants to find effective, viable solutions. One of the things which we will probably be asked is, but this is going to cost money. And there's the last point to say, if we look at the money which is being spent today on putting people in jail prior to possible or impossible return, what is done with people when they're stopped at the border? What is done and spent on return flights? If we take all that money together and we use our imagination and a bit of goodwill, I think we can do better than that.